They didn't even wait until the dungeon was cleared. In the flicker of torchlight, the crown prince yanked the court robe from Alec's shoulders and called him worthless. Steel scraped stone, magic hissed in the dark, and someone muttered that a rear-line coward had no place with real adventurers. Alec didn't shout back. He just held out the only thing he still believed might help, a stack of notes mapping the lower floors and the tricks to keep a low-mana team alive. Paper met boot, then mud. The notes were torn, crumpled, and ground under heel. The guards at the palace would echo the same verdict the next morning. Commoners don't enter, as if the robe he'd earned had always belonged to someone else. If you only saw that moment, you'd think the nobles were right. You'd call Alec a support mage who hid in the back and prayed. But that's the thing about stories told by people who swing swords first. They miss the spells you never see, they miss the choices that keep them breathing, and they miss the warning Alec heard long before this day, the one he ignored, even when it cost him everything. But that wasn't where his legend began. He was a kid who spent more time trailing riverbanks than lecture halls when Eldest found him. Not the court-polished Eldest the Academy gossiped about, but the man who swallowed a lifetime of regrets and still bothered to teach a stubborn boy how to think in circles of light. Never become a court magician, Eldest said, like it was as practical as telling a child not to touch a hot pan. He taught Alec to imagine future friends he hadn't met yet and cast as if their lives depended on him. He taught timing, not flash, the quiet art of making other people look brave. And he wouldn't say why the court expelled him, wouldn't explain how he knew Alec's mother, wouldn't explain the debt he claimed to be repaying. Just a warning and a smile, as if fate were a river you could step around. The day Eldest left the capital, Alec made a promise he wasn't supposed to make. He would join the academy, ace the exams, and fix the court from the inside. If the palace was the place where decisions were made, he would walk straight into its heart and turn that warning into proof it was wrong. Except some warnings are puzzles you solve too late. The banishment should have ended him. Instead, it delivered him to the one person who never once asked for his resume. Yorha caught him in the street, red hair bright in the morning light, eyes burning like she just remembered who they used to be. She didn't say sorry, she didn't rage about nobles. She offered him something better. Join us. Not as a pity hire, as the missing piece of lasting period, the party that turned the Academy's impossible floors into after-class stories. They left for Fizzle, a city that didn't check your family tree before it measured your talent. The guild clerk smiled and refused them anyway. Regulations. 2 years of membership before you can touch floors past 30, Yorha argued. Alec listened. The rule wasn't a trap, it was a test, and the one who wrote it had already heard about the useless court mage who never missed a support window. The guildmaster didn't arrive with a fanfare, he showed up with an apology in the shape of a pass, a grin that promised trouble, and a challenge. Levy wanted proof. Not rank board gossip, not palace politics. Just a duel where excuses burned away and only your next breath mattered. And this is where Alec stopped pretending. There's a version of Alec that nobles think they know. Soft hands, quiet voice, a mind full of spreadsheets and safeguards. Levy met the other version. The one who sets tiny traps with the casual rhythm of someone tying a boot. The one who waits out a heavy punch behind a shield that looks paper thin until it doesn't. The one who dances into close range not because he's reckless, but because he's already measured your stride. Levy hit like a landslide and laughed like a storm. Reinforcement magic cracked the ground. Gauntlets glowed and healed. Every time Alec bought a heartbeat with a barrier, Levy stole it with speed. That would have broken the court version of Alec, the one who counted his magic aloud and asked permission to breathe. But he wasn't in the palace anymore. No senior mage to scold him for risking property of the crown. No prince to bark an order mid-cast and ruin a minute's work. So he gambled the way Eldest taught him. Lay the wire, fake the angle, make the opponent show teeth. When Levy lunged, Alec's thunder stitched the trap closed. Not a knockout. Levy's the kind of monster who shakes off losing an arm and calls it cardio, but enough to earn respect. And in that respect was permission. Not from a king, from himself. Because the real test wasn't the spar. It was what waited underground. The call came in broken phrases. S-rank party, stuck on the 64th, magic suppressed, potions only, time bleeding out. Krista's team hadn't been bested by numbers, they were strangled by rules. Every spell cast dragged like an anchor, every mistake cost more than a bruise. They used a crystal to skip the usual climb, and the dungeon greeted them with bone and rust, the undead stepping from walls that used to be stories. Rain went first, a spear in hand and a grin that said, "Please try me." Kra counted respirations and weak spots. Yorha stacked buffs until the air hummed. Alec walked among the silence and felt something that wasn't the silence. A tilt in the air, a shadow that didn't belong to anything visible. When his blade met nothing and rang like it hit iron, the Grim Reaper appeared where there'd been empty space. Not a metaphor. An actual scythe, flickering cloak, the whole textbook. Rain didn't flinch. He trusted Alec to handle what his eyes couldn't see. That trust did more than flatter. It shortened Alec's cast time. When someone else believes you can, your hands move like they've already finished. They burned through waves that wouldn't end. They learned the rhythm of bones cracking and rising again. They learned how to make the floor itself into a partner. And when the cave opened into a hall too wide for comfort, a knight in black came charging. Not the boss, not yet, just a sub-boss so angry at being outplayed that it left its post to chase one trickster mage. Loki snared it with traps that would have roasted anything with less hate in its bones. It kept coming anyway. Alec's first thunder spell jolted it. The second drilled it. It still moved. Yorha chained it down long enough for Rain to throw a spear like judgment. It still moved. That was the moment Alec stopped worrying about how much magic he had left and started counting something else, how much his friends had bet on him, and how little room he had to waste it. So he reached for the spell Eldis made him promise not to waste. Reflection magic isn't flashy until the instant it is. Most people use shields to survive a hit. Alec uses them to steal it. He catches the incoming spell like a gloved hand catching a knife, twists the grip, and sends it back twice as mean. The sub-boss was built to bully. It wasn't built to meet a mirror that bites. The first reflect staggered it and lit hairline cracks across its armor, bright like veins of hot ore. The second reflect turned those veins into ruptures. The third needed more time than they had, so Alec made time. He layered circles until the air trembled. Cross-sniped skulls in the periphery. Yorha strengthened joints and tendon and trust. Rain pinned the knight with a final throw that nailed darkness to the floor. The cave smelled like a storm when the spell broke. The knight stopped moving, as much dead as an undead can be. Loki, bleeding ego but breathing lungs, handed Alec an artifact wand that responded like it had been waiting for his palm all along. "You look like bait," he joked, meaning it as a strategy. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't matter. Bait isn't helpless when it has teeth. And still, the boss had not arrived, because the dungeon wasn't finished testing what this party was willing to become. Krista's message said rescue, not revenge. Rain joked about marching into the capital and making the prince beg, then shrugged and chose a goal that hurt more beautifully. Become the strongest party alive and let the court come knocking when they run out of heroes. It wasn't pettiness, it was geometry. Power changes the angle of every conversation. Somewhere above them, nobles toasted policies that got people killed. Somewhere below them, a necromancer drilled commands into a real boss that wouldn't fall for traps or hero speeches. The floor's rules punished healers and rewarded patience. That's why Loki's plan made sense in a way no court tactic ever did. Put Alec where the enemy has to look, dare it to waste its biggest shot, reflect the room itself, and let a dozen circles close at once. But even good plans don't survive their first bite. The only certainty was the promise Yorha made years ago and renewed in a park bench hug. Only Alec fits this team-shaped space. You can find a dozen mages who cast faster or louder. You can't find one who knows how to make 3 other people feel bigger than their bones. When they finally push the boss door, what waits isn't a monster. It's a mirror, not the spell, a career mirror. Everything the palace called weakness, patience, protection, long setups, a refusal to grandstand, becomes the critical path to winning a fight no one else survives. It's not that Alec stops being a support mage, it's that the floor reveals how terrifying support becomes when it's the smartest damage on the map. And that's why this story is landing right now. You don't need a dissertation on tropes to feel why people are clicking this. It's the heat that lives where unfairness meets competence. The satisfaction of a character who doesn't need the court to say good job before becoming the kind of problem bosses are designed for. It helps that the anime landed this fall with sturdy bones, Studio Gekao on production, Ken Takahashi steering, Kiro Akiyama rocking the OP, a Crunchyroll stream you can actually find, and a dub rollout that turned heads last week. Early chatter said the premiere felt choppy. The next episodes answered with meat, guild test, 64th floor rescue, and the first glimpses of reflection, magic, and motion. If you're watching for setups that pay off, you're eating well. So here's the question. This arc keeps asking, without saying it out loud, what happens to a system that only recognizes power when it shouts? Alec stopped shouting back. He started building storms, and sooner or later, even a prince learns what a mirror can do. Alec didn't get stronger because they called him weak. He got louder in the only language that matters down there. Solved problems. If you've ever carried someone who didn't know you were carrying them, you'd know why this hits. The robe can stay in the dirt. The legend keeps walking.